All right, bows and bow ties. Now, look, I know it's been a while since I've been on. It's been a while. Look, don't judge me. I know I'm like all up close into the camera. I've got my computer on my lap. Yes, you can see my multiple chins. But look, we're gonna go with it the way it is. Um, so look, let me just get on into it. For those of you who are new to my channel, I'm the Black Opinionated Woman, also known as a bow, and I've got time. I am a contractor that supports the government. Since there's a shutdown, I have time today. So, I have a couple of notes here on my phone. So if I look away, it's because I'm trying to make sure I kind of collect my thoughts. This wasn't well thought out, but I figured I would have this conversation. I had a conversation with a parent at one of my kids' sporting events, and we were talking about relationships. And when I say relationships, I'm talking about casual, whether it's acquaintances, friendships, or whatever it is. And I went down this whole rabbit hole about how, like, some people talk to you maybe only when you have something to provide, or it's like very transactional, and all these other things, and you kind of like see it for what it is, and you don't lose sleep over it, and you just recognize that. And like the older you get to, like, trying to figure out what's going on with my hair. Look, I've been through a lot with this hair situation. I don't colored it. Can you see the color coming, growing out? Can you guys see that? I don't cut my hair down a couple of times because I put too much color and it was falling out. Anyway, I digress. So look, it's growing back. So look, but it feels good though. Yeah. So look, you go down these rabbit holes, and somehow I ended up on, not with this particular parent, but I was doing some reflection, and I was thinking about relationships, friendships, acquaintances, and stuff like that. And I've had other recent conversations about it, and it brought me back to this, what I now see as a non-friendship from several years back. And let me see, where was I going with this? Okay. So basically, it made me think a lot about um, transactional relationships, loyalty. It made me think about authenticity. Um, I learned a lesson from someone. I know I seem like I'm all over the place. I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there. Just stick with me. I remember there was this woman, and you guys have heard this before, but years ago, she was explaining to me about, we have these circles. You have your tiny circle that you exist in, and then there's like layers out, right? And certain people get access to certain parts of the circle, right? And I had, for quite a bit of time, I kept, things or people pretty much out of certain circles. Right. There was me, then the next layer might be my husband or something like that, or my husband and children. Next layer like that might be parents and siblings. And oh, hey there, welcome. So there would be like, the next layer would be like maybe like parents and siblings, or then the next layer might be a close friend, or whatever. But I had decided to be open to allowing people in closer, in one of those circles that was closer to like the essence of me. Now, where am I going with this? This might seem like a hot mess, but if you stick with me, hopefully I can land this plane. So I was friends with some people when, or at least I thought I was, when I was playing tennis. And I remember there was this one particular person that I thought I hit it off with. Well, several women, right? They were funny. I like getting my hee haws. And so we, for the most part, we did hit it off. And so over time, you start to um, hang out with each other, spend more time with each other, that type of thing. Now, the significance of that is, usually the older you get, it's much harder to make friends. Let that one sink in. It becomes much harder to make friends. So when you decide to let people into one of those circles, right? It's a big deal. It means something. It means, okay, I think I can trust you, all these other things. And so I would invite certain people into my life, They had access to meeting my family. They've been in my home. You know, I've shared my time, my cycles, etc. All the things. And I thought this was a wonderful sequence of events. I don't know. Like, I thought it was great. But what was interesting about it was I started hearing grumblings, and it started being things like, that girl's not your friend, all this other stuff. And this actually went on for several years. And I feel so foolish, so freaking stupid, because I was one of those. I'm like, y'all just trying to tear apart black women's relationships. Oh, I was going through it. And yes, this was another black woman. Well, there were several black women, but this one in particular. And I did not want for people to provide outside commentary. And probably because I was so excited to have this new this these new set of relationships, but more importantly, this particular one. And yes, I have friends. Let me tell you, I wasn't desperate for friendship. And I'm more apt to be closer to my family or like older friends. But these new relationships, these new friends, I thought it was so exciting to me, and it was fun, and we had these things in common because we played tennis or whatever. But I started hearing these grumblings, and I was constantly shutting it down because I didn't want to hear it. I don't know if it was denial, maybe. Maybe I didn't want to see the red flags. Um, I didn't want to see it. I thought that these were healthy relationships, right? Especially with this one particular person. So I remember when I was playing tennis and I was starting to get involved with mixed doubles. And I remember there were some people who were really cool, a little bit older than me, but they were almost like big sister, big brother type energy. And I remember them telling me, that's where some of the story comes in, by virtue of you being friends or playing with is a particular individual, that now means you're sleeping with this man, or I don't know, something silly. And I was like, what? And they were joking, but what they were saying was like, that's what's going to start coming out, because it always comes out about, whatever, whatever. And I didn't really pay attention because I'm like, I have a whole husband and children and blah, blah, blah. And they were like, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. So it started with that. And then it started with people who I may or may not have received some coaching or lessons from, and they would pull me aside. And usually men aren't messy, but a lot of men pulled me aside and they were like, not everybody needs access to you. It was like all cryptic. Cryptic. And these are people who knew the person that I was trying to be friends with and some of the other ladies. And I was so delusional because I was like, why are you guys saying these things? Blah, 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 real cool people, whatever. And over time, the grumbling got louder and louder to the point that I was beginning to feel like, am I just stupid? Or is everybody else being a hater? But it was interesting because it wasn't so much as a very few women who were calling it out. It was the men. And usually men aren't messy, but men were like, be careful of that one. But it wasn't just her, but her in particular. Where was I going with this? So I allowed for a group of people, and this one person in particular, to have a lot of access to me and my family and whatever. And I thought foolishly that they felt the same about me. It's like a ding dong. I was up here because I just wanted that relationship to be amazing, right? Now, let me just say for the record, this is not an indictment on black women. This woman happened to be a black woman, okay? But anyway, so here I am thinking I am opening myself up, allowing finally, because I don't allow a whole lot of people into my space, good people into my space, into one of those circles that I talked about previously. And more grumblings was coming out. So where am I going with this? Eventually, what happened? Let me just cut to the chase. There were several people who, by conventional standards, were considered. Well, there was many men. This is coming out really wrong, by the way. This is coming out kind of crazy. But there were several men by conventional standards that were considered to be attractive. And I was very fortunate back in my fitter, finer, younger days. Yes, I used to be a lot slimmer than I am now. I'm probably like a size like 12, 14 now. I'm like a thickums now. But back when I was like 4'6", but I'll say a good size 6. So in my fitter, finer, younger days, um, I was really good. I was very athletic when I was playing tennis and really good. And I had the choice of playing with certain people. And so what happened was there were grumblings that apparently I had a thing with several of the guys, not one but two. So I should say a couple, not several. Not one, but two. I was like, I get around. And I didn't even know I get around. I'm like, shouldn't I know? And that started growing. It became like a forest fire. And here I am, the big fat loser. Like, why would you guys say that? You guys are crossing drama, blah, blah, blah. Don't do that. I have a whole husband who used to play tennis too, but then, he stopped playing. So here I am, like, thinking, like, either someone is spreading crazy, or am I just that delusional, allowing people to say these things about me and my husband or whatever? Like my husband's just allowing me to just be, but wow, he was just like getting crazy. And I'm like the big fat dum dum because I was protecting a relationship that wasn't worth being protected, or a friendship that wasn't worth being protected. And so what happened was in the process, so this is how I finally started to catch on. Because, see, people start to tell on themselves. And it wasn't so much that they said anything about the relationship, but there started being like these attacks towards me from the same person, like making just comments, like trying to see if they can find a picture of me looking not cute or something. Like, it was like crazy stuff. Or saying things like the only reason why somebody wants to play with you is because they have a type and you fit that type, like crazy stuff. And I'm like, it could be the fact that I'm good. I was good in singles, doubles, everything, right? The record shows for itself. But it was because I was light skinned, I'm this guy's type, and all this other stuff. And I'm like, I go home every day to my husband and my children. My children. At the time, I had 4 children. They were a lot younger. And I was busy. I had to be a mom. I had to be a wife. I had to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So all of these rumors kept surfacing. And I kept shutting it down. But the person who I now know who's spreading these would say things to me like, kept talking about my physicality, which was strange. It kept talking about my skin tone, kept talking about how I'm somebody's type, kept talking about how, like, it was just like a lot of stuff going on. And then when I would hear she would be interested in some man or whatever, I mean, I'm not checking for anybody. I have my whole husband at home. This wasn't something I was into. But to listen to people take shots at her because there were many who had their own colorist issues. This was a very dark skinned woman who I didn't think was unattractive at all and cleans up nicely. But there were men who would take shots at her and she felt it. So I'm sitting here trying to defend someone who was behind the scenes engaging in very subversive behavior. And I, I would venture to say some other woman kind of co-signed it, but I can't say 100% for sure. But when it kept coming out to me and to the point where people were like, you need to open your eyes. I remember there was one moment where I had been out of the scene for about a year or so because, I'm too busy raising my family. And I thought about getting back into tennis. But I had asked one of my old partners. I said, "Hey, I need to get the strings cut out of my rackets. Can you blah blah blah?" I think we met up. He took them to go get them restrung or whatever. And I remember going to, they were playing at some sort of local like match or something. I said, "You know what? I haven't seen everybody in over a year." I had gone to watch them play and pick up my rackets, by the way. So I'm picking up two or three rackets, and they're wrapped up nicely, blah, blah, blah. You know how it's all in the plastic bag and rubber bands and everything. But I said, "Oh, come and watch you guys play." I had a good time. And I'm watching several people, play their matches. And everybody's like, "Oh, what's up? I haven't seen you in a while." And I remember I saw the person who we had started having a little bit of distance. But as soon as I got there, and suddenly all the rumors started all over again. And people were like, "Now are you seeing?" And all I did was come pick up some rackets and watch people play. Where am I going with this? Where am I going with this? And go back to my um I think sometimes when you go so long where you try to protect your yourself, like your inner peace, your mental space or energy, whatever words you want to use. And I kept people outside of certain circles, right? There's self, and then there's your immediate family, and then your parents and siblings and extended whatever. I kept people out of that. And then I was finally willing to be vulnerable and let people in, especially her. And come to find out she had so many feelings about me. But, well, let me rephrase that. These were really about her. But the the subversive stuff, like, it was so hurtful what she did. She was spreading. ap- Apparently I had like two affairs with people I hadn't seen. And I'm like, well, don't we need to like be together, like physically together in order, like this? It was like wild. And I'm like sitting here like a big fat dum dum, like, wait, what? And people are like, "We've been trying to tell you she's not your friend." You've got coaches saying not everybody needs to come to your house. Not everybody, and I'm thinking back, because I'm sitting here as I'm like going through this. I'm like, you know what? But and like I said, I'm leaving a lot out because this is a family channel. Where I'm going with it was you. Sorry, I had a couple notes here. It was a learning lesson. It was a big learning lesson, because there's a reason why we have protection mechanisms. There's a reason why we don't let everybody into our spaces. There's a reason why you need to be whole and healthy. And at least I thought I was a whole and healthy person. But I think I was excited for new relationships, new friendships, and I let that excitement um, miscloud my judgment. And I let people into my space who said some damaging things. And what made it so bad was like, I'm like, I haven't seen these people. Like, what are you talking? Like, it was like so like mind boggling. It's like if you haven't seen somebody in a year, how can you? It's like, wait, what? I'm like, I don't even keep up with people like that. Like, I'm too busy raising my kids, and then I finally come out and I'm like, don't we have to be together, like physically, like hold hands and skip? And it was so wild. But it wasn't just one, but two. Now, like I said, this person was dealing with a lot, had issues with me, like my physicality. Like they were trying to like literally like the things that they were doing and saying, like trying to like pick at. Like I'm like, what? And I'm like, I got it going on, because I was into myself anyway, back in my fair finer younger days. But I just thought it was interesting, because this person was seeking to tear me down, and I was allowing access. It was like wild to me. And I refused to let people at the time. I just, because I hate when people try to pit women against each other. I, so I wasn't hearing it. And I'm giving this person so many opportunities. And it's like, in terms of having access to me, my family, my space, everything. And this person was behind the scenes. It's crazy. It is crazy, the stuff that was going on. So anyway, oh, Oh, all right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Let's keep it clean. But yeah, thank you. So now, where I was going with that was I learned a lot of lessons because you want to know where I know this is going to make some people mad, but I'm going to say it. I learned that during that time how live and well colorism was still kicking. Now, let me just say for the record, I never thought it was gone, but it was a reminder because of the things that were said to me by other people and the things that she would say to me was really the way she felt about herself. Like she felt like people were coming, and it wasn't just her, but I'm just using this particular person. And I think I represented something that, yeah, she said to contend with. Um, but yeah, she said some horrible things. And I learned, I'm like, you cannot just invite people into your space. I don't care how it feels. You have to discern. And you have to be mindful of the fact that there are people who are dealing with some unhealed traumas and everything else. This person tried to, let me tell you, this was nothing but the devil. This person tried to ruin my relationship by saying I had an affair with not one, but two. It was getting back to me. Oh, it was getting back to me good. It got back to me real, real, real good. And I remember one time there was this, I don't even remember the girl's name. It'll probably come to me. I remember she said, "Oh, you're the one that everybody says is blah, blah." I didn't even know this lady. And she was like running down all the stuff. I'm like, looking at her like mortified, like, this is crazy. This is crazy. People I don't even see. Don't lock eyes. Don't communicate. No texting. No phone calls. Like, what? And I want to be clear. I never had an affair with any of these people. But it was like wild to me. I could not understand. Like, and this was like proliferated through so many people and it spread like wildfire. I'm like, what? People I don't even see. But when I listened to as I was going through all the events, you start to play back a whole bunch of events, and I think about all the things that this woman had said and the things that she had concerns about or whatever like that, and I was like, this is tracking. And I was the idiot for not discerning because I just enjoyed at least what the surface part of the friendship was, and it was fun, and not realizing that I was basically, the laughing stock or whatever, right? And so I was like, you know what? This is a good lesson. This is a good lesson on why you don't invite everybody into your space. Why I thought that I could have these healthy relationships, especially when you're a little bit later in life, like, because it's hard to make friends later in life. And here I am thinking, how wonderful. Like, so dumb. How wonderful. How wonderful. And yeah, it was a really good lesson. I don't tend to entertain a lot of relationships, I guess is a word. I I have a healthy respect for my hesitation. Because that one, and this was probably how many years ago was this? 5, 6, 7 years ago. I can't remember. It hasn't been 10, but I would say, I'm 49 now. So I would say within the last 5 to 7 years, it's still recent enough as I think about how I had this conversation with another parent. We were talking about transactional relationships and fake relationships and things where you start to see through things. And so you just don't really engage as much. And somehow you just go down a rabbit hole. And here we are now making a video. But yeah, I definitely learned I don't entertain a lot of even just like these very surface relationships. I don't. So I hate to be the Missouri of it all and like show me, be like the show me state, but I take my time. And um I find my comfort in other things. And I mean, I have my sisters, I have my immediate family, I have my four kids who drive me crazy, and my husband that I don't even give a day. I'm like, let me tell you something. He's always like, he doesn't pay me any mind. But I and I have friendships, but even still, for me, I think I tend to have just a certain level of, there's just only but so much I'm going to give. Actually, this is a total sidebar. A neighbor of mine asked me one time about why I don't tend to entertain at my house. I don't live in an area where there's a lot of people who look like me. And I said to her, I said, the reason why I don't tend to invite a whole lot of people over is for me, is for the protection of me and my family. And she looked and she was like, well, what does that mean? We went back and forth. And I explained, I said, I have to feel safe. And I have to feel that when I go home, like I don't have to be on, I don't have to be anything, right? I'm like, so when I leave my house every day, I go to my place of employment where there's not a lot of people who look like me. And I go to stores where there's not a lot of people who look like me. And I attend a lot of events where there's virtually no one who looks like me when as far as things like with my kids, whatever, except for now with basketball, there's more diversity. But I said, where can I go where I'm the safest? My house. That's me. And I don't like to invite a lot of that in. And it could just be because, I've dealt with things in the past. Now, granted, this was not a black woman, but I had to explain. I said, the way you walk through life is different than it is for me. So for me, that's just where I'm at with it. Maybe things will change in a few years. I don't know. But today, I don't entertain a lot at my house. I don't. I have to be able to be in a place where I don't feel like there's going to be subversive behavior happening and people trying to tear me down. Life is already hard enough as it is. But I digress. Getting back to that scenario, this woman who tried to purport to be a friend of mine tried to ruin me. She tried to like I was so stunned. Like, do you know how stunning? It's not just one affair, but two. I'm like, who who has time for two affairs? I barely have time for the one I got with my husband. I was like, when I say it was so stunning and shocking, the kinds of things that were coming out to me, and I'm like, I didn't even know this person had all this going on. I don't see these people. But for this person to do these things, anyway, I don't entertain a lot of fake friendships or anything like that, right? I'm pleasant to a lot of people. I can be cordial. Not everybody's my friend. I get along with people, but I want to see what kind of energy you're going to pour into me too. Like, and I'm willing to let things die. That's where I'm at with it. I don't know if it's good. I don't know. But that's where I'm at with it. I'm 49 and cranky. I'm premenopausal. I might be in menopause. The only thing that hasn't really popped off yet is a whole lot of gray hair. I see a few ones every now and then, but my hair is definitely thinner. I mean, like, look at my part. Oh, wait, sorry, opposite. Look how thick my parts are. I'm like, oh my gosh, you know. I'm just going through it where I'm like, I don't care. The answer is no. I don't do a lot of explanation. Like, if I don't want to do something, I'm like, no. I don't. I mean, that's just where I'm at with it. I don't feel the need to do that. I don't feel the need to go out of my way to cultivate friendships, although I do recognize how important they are. I think I'm going to do another video on being in community because yes, I do have friends, by the way. Let's be clear. But I don't feel the need to cultivate a lot of relationships. I take it as it comes to me. If it's going to be authentic, that's great. If it's organic, that's great. If it's just transactional, I will treat you transactionally. Like I really will. I don't care. Like that's just where I'm at with it. So now the question I have, I'm like, because I should probably have some sort of call to action. I never have one. Have any of you ever defended someone who didn't have your back? I know I did. I know what that's like to defend someone vehemently. And especially when they tore this person down, it tore down her looks, it tore down her attitude, which she did have. When Aisha was like, you got an attitude problem. I tried to defend this person. And I'm like, well, maybe I need to get on somebody's couch. I'm like, why was I trying to defend this person? I think I have an idea why, but that's probably something I should discuss in another video. But I tried to look out for this person, even when this person didn't know. That's the thing. I think that's the reason why when all this was coming, you said you did several times. I'm curious to hear what that was about. So the question was, did you try to ever defend somebody who really didn't have your back? Um, I think that's probably the reason why that particular relationship, that one stung a little bit. And I remember when I confronted this person, it was a phone call. The thing that made it very transparent was how the person responded within that next day or week or whatever after the phone call. I confronted the person. I said, look, are you spreading lies? Or I forgot exactly the words that basically was, hey, I'm hearing these things. Tell me you're not saying these things. Because I had you in my house. I had you around my husband. I had you around my kids. I don't play about my kids. They're mine. I got 4 of them. I'm like, I had you in my spaces. I'm like, tell me. And, there was the lying stuff. During that phone call, there was a whole bunch of crying. I'm like, wait a second. Why are you crying when I'm the one that's being hurt? That was eye opening for me. I'm like, wait a second. And after that phone call, see, if that person was a friend and cared, they would have like, I want to make this right. Even let's say it was all true. I mean, I probably still wouldn't have been friends with her, but but like I was like, she never cared. If it wasn't true, she would have been like, wait a second. Let's address this. Number 2, if she cared and felt any remorse, she would have been like, hey, we gotta get this. Like, do you understand what I mean? But see, they always say like when the devil does things, the devil hides. The devil hides. The devil hides. Right? And they say all things that are done in the dark come to the light. Like I said, there's more to this. There's no need to give all the gory details, but I think you get the gist of it. Being in a relationship with a friendship relationship, and you realize it was really one-sided. I cared more than this person did. I was like, I was the biggest dumb dumb. Dumb dumb. I mean, I can laugh about it now, but I was like, I cannot believe I didn't see the red flags. And people kept trying to tell me for the last few years. They were telling me over and over, and I just wouldn't see it. I wouldn't see it. Anyway, I say all this. I'm going to go back to what this lady who didn't look like me told me. She said, I know I said this before. You have circles for reasons. Not everybody needs to be in your inner circle. Not everybody deserves it. There's the one that you're in, and then which each one that goes out, you allow more people in that circle. When you have men, and men aren't, well, I'm not saying that men can't gossip, but when you have men pull you aside and they're like, hey, can I talk to you for a second? You should be careful. Or not everybody needs to be in your house. Or not everybody is your friend. And there were multiple men. One dude even said, you got these people out here, men and women, they are hating on you so bad. And they were talking to my partner too at the time. The stuff that was said, and I was like, really? And he's like, but all right, let me wrap this up. Thanks for tuning in. I have several more videos I want to put out since I have time. I'm trying to decide if I'm going to do those today. Hopefully, you'll come back and you'll send this to all of your friends and all that good stuff, and you'll subscribe to the channel. So, but all right, let me go ahead and end this. Thanks for tuning in. There will be some others coming up. I might do one in the next 10 minutes, depending on my mood. All right, bye.